Hi, today I thought I could talk about trust. I talked about it a little bit in an open mic I did Friday, and I think trust is really important because we can oftentimes find ourselves kind of I think as humans, as a culture, like humans voices are the weakest, are the most easy to take advantage of when we feel separate from one another, and the only way we're really ever going to get to a place of stronger community on this planet is to trust one another on a deeper level. And I do believe that sometimes people have a tendency of how they might have been hurt by a guy or a girl in the past. They then categorize anyone that looks like that person, whether it's the same gender, same ethnicity, maybe everyone from the Midwest, or that reminds us of the hurt we received from someone. We then categorize that person as not safe and we push them away. But it actually prevents us from having really beautiful relationships in our lifetimes. And it's us holding on to the hurt rather than facing our hurt and using that hurt as a reason to open our heart deeper. And for me, it's like anytime that I really feel like someone said something really mean or it really hurt me, like what I've come to realize is every dagger is actually just digging a greater well in my heart for love as I move through the pain of that dagger. And it doesn't mean we put ourselves in abusive situations or environments or around people like that, but when we are around, when we go through an experience where someone hurts us, it's the reason why we can say thank you, because it only, if you face it and feel it and move through it, it will only make you better. And I think when we're thinking about trust is like the way that we're going to actually have real community on this planet, and it's the way we're going to have more deep meaningful relationships on this planet. And we it's hard to kind of know if someone's going to be trustworthy or not if we're not leading with a little trust and giving them trust and allowing their actions to kind of tell us what kind of relationship it's going to be, right? If there's someone that's incredibly kind, respectful, loving to themselves, to you, to the people around them, whether that's you go and get dinner with them and they're really kind and respectful to the waiter or waitress, right? They're showing you that they are safe enough to handle a deeper relationship. Or maybe we're getting to know someone and they can be incredibly judgmental towards certain people, or we notice they're kind of they can kind of stereotype people or be a little racist, or maybe they're not always the nicest to you, or maybe they kind of tease you in a way that puts you down, or they're not always nice to the waiter or waitress, and they're not always nice to their siblings or their family, and recognizing, oh, the ways that this person still might judge others or be mean to others is actually showing me they're not they have a couple too many thorns for me really to get closer to them, and probably wouldn't serve me to really be in a long term relationship with them. And that doesn't mean you can't be friends with them and see them every now and then, but it's something to be discerning of. If I spend more time with this person, I become more like them. And do I really want to pick up all their bad habits? And, like, you know, for me, I have friends who have bad habits. I have friends who struggle with pornography. I have friends who at times were even working as a prostitute, and recognizing that spending time with someone like that every now and then isn't going to necessarily lower your frequency, or you're going to instantly become more like them. But it's like, okay, if someone has really bad habits or is it still lost in addiction, just probably someone I shouldn't be spending um, every day with. Probably more someone to go see that I have really nice small talk with at community events, and maybe we get dinner every now and then, maybe every couple of weeks. But space can be really helpful in making sure that we're staying in alignment with our true self rather than avoiding ourselves, and thinking that other people's approval of us or other people's time and attention is going to make us feel like we're enough or that we're worthy. and it's something I've been kind of, I think might be a little bit of the backbone of this talk, is that with friends you really don't need to have as strong boundaries as I think oftentimes people lead with. Like, you can always just allow people's action and the history you have with them to determine what kind of friendship it's going to be, right? If you're spending time with someone and they regularly get triggered with you, or they take out their anger out on you, and when you bring it up with them they flip it on you, gaslight you, um, and they can't handle basic communication, okay, probably someone that I'm only meant to hang out with very, very little, or not at all. And if that's a family member, I'd say give them more grace. And if it's a friend, I'd say give them a little bit less grace, because you don't really need to be around that. You could find better people who aren't harsh or negative, or put you down. And maybe I have a friend who might be a little bit more harsh, or might struggle with anger a little bit more, but I generally feel excited to see them. And so seeing them and getting dinner with them every 3 weeks actually lights me up and adds value to my life. And it's like, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. And you're not going to pick up someone's anger tendencies just because you get dinner with them every now and then, right? You would only really, like, it would only be a problem maybe if you're spending every day with them, or sleeping with them, or and you recognizing, can we lead with a little bit of unconditional love and unconditional acceptance? And if someone's interested in getting to know us, and we have the time and space to get to know them, and we feel kind of excited to get to know them, maybe even if they don't look like typical friends that we have, it might really add to our life to go get dinner with that person every now and then. It might really add to our life to not have such strong boundaries in our life, and to be a little bit more open with people. And even if there is a rupture with someone, like, I really believe leading with grace. And like, there's definitely been times where I've gotten triggered, where someone's triggered the crap out of me, and 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 I didn't handle it the best. And I actually realized that, oh, like, I had to go through, like, sometimes you don't see how you're being swayed by your emotions until after you say the wrong thing, and then you're like, shit, like, I wasn't trying to be hurtful. Um and we have to look and read into people's words. And for there can be even a thing of, like, I used to do this thing when I would get triggered, of being like brutally honest. Like, I would just throw the truth at someone, like kind of like hitting someone with a pitch. Like, I would, like, because that's the thing about being insightful, is like, oh, I can provide really deep insights in your life, but I also know exactly how to push your buttons, and I know exactly what the pattern is, and if you and I know how to say it in a way that's aggressive and showing my fangs a little bit. And but that typically doesn't lead to people coming back into your life, or repair. And that's something I kind of learned, is like, oh, if I'm going to take this insight but use it as a way of kind of growling or showing my fangs, that person's going to run away. And I think even like my I think even sometimes being grace, giving grace, when we try and have a repair conversation, and the person might still be a little emotional about it, right? Sometimes we have to give it time, and let's see if that, when we revisit it in 5 weeks or something like that, if we then can talk with more of a level head, and both say we're sorry, and find repair. And we're all going to have to use discernment of who to do that with. But I think, really leading with grace, because most people are well intended, and most people just aren't aware of their triggers, aren't aware how sometimes being brutally honest isn't really going to lead to greater repair happening in their relationships, and it might scare people away. And being gentle with people, and if someone doesn't handle the repair conversation very well, but we generally really enjoy talking with them, and we think their emotions might have just been swaying them a little bit, when we when we revisit it, if we choose to revisit it a couple weeks later, right? Are we both able to talk about it with a level head and both say we're sorry and get to back to a place of connecting with one another and loving one another? Because every human wants to be loved. Every human wants friendship, and many people are out there wanting deeper friendship, or either we want more friends, or we want more meaningful friendships, or we want more closeness or vulnerability in our relationships. And if we're constantly not trusting people, or constantly having really sharp boundaries with people who just want to get to know us as friends, we never actually get build the community of what we want. And this kind of transitions. I didn't think I was going to talk so much about this, but these are all important things to hit. Is like I also think about community. Like, so one thing is like people don't trust enough. That's one of the reasons why there isn't good community on this planet. Is, the ways guys, if you're a girl and guy, and maybe you're heterosexual, and guys have tried to take advantage of you in the past, you then typically don't, like, it's definitely a pattern I've seen with people I've gotten to know. There's a lot of girls out there that don't, or females that don't necessarily trust men, and aren't really trusting and getting to know men, allowing allowing like a guy's actions to speak for what kind of relationship it was going to be. And that usually is a pattern of, I moved too quickly with guys in the past and then got hurt, and then I don't trust guys. And in truth, if I'm just willing to get to know people as friends and move slower, there's very few chances of actually getting hurt. And I thought about this. I talked about fear in the last video, and I was thinking about fear, and I explained it, kind of talking about how fear can be an intuitive hit. I also think oftentimes fear is just what's foreign or unfamiliar to us, and recognizing, even if I'm actually in a dangerous situation, the person I'm with actually isn't trustworthy, like, if you learn if you move slow enough with people and are direct and engaged with people, there's actually very few chances typically for you to get hurt. It's like I've watched videos of people who go out and swim with sharks, and they look to swim with sharks because they enjoy doing that. And they talk about, if, like, the shark is only really a threat if you swim and run away from it. And if you face the shark and start to swim at it and just take your hand and redirect its head, right, there's actually the most almost all the time the shark leaves you alone. And I think there's something to be said of, right? Probably don't want to go swimming in shark infested waters or shark waters. Maybe infested isn't the right word, but shark waters with like an open wound. Right? We want to be careful and cautious still, but recognizing that if I'm direct and I engage with people and I take it slow enough, and I'm willing to be aware of my surroundings, willing to be aware of someone's actions, a lot of times I'm safe, and a lot of times my directness will keep me safe. And even if we didn't feel safe around someone, I've had an experience where I didn't feel safe necessarily in someone's apartment, and I just said, I would repeat to myself, I'm safe, I'm protected, I am loved. And I did that. I did that, and it put me really in a relaxed state, because I think oftentimes someone's predator fangs only come out when they can feel you're afraid. And if you're relaxed around a predator, right, the predator doesn't stop might stop seeing you as prey so much. And that probably isn't always going to be true. And but maybe try the mantra if you feel like you're not in a safe place. I'm safe, I'm protected, I am loved. um uh but yeah, I've been to bring it back to community. I think people don't trust enough, and I think one of the reasons why people don't trust enough is, instead of people building friendship in their life, people are oriented towards chasing after romantic partners or having a lot of sex, and it leads to a lot of people being like, when we're having sex with people or rushing into dating, people, and there isn't long-term viability for that relationship, right? People get hurt. People end up taking a piece of your heart. People end up getting fucked, right? There, if you took the word fucked and took it out of the context of having sex with someone, someone said they were gonna fuck you, it wouldn't actually be a good thing. And I think, right? 50 Cent said, like, I'm not into love in what I think it was, what, I'm not into making love. I just, I'm into I don't know, into sex or something like that. But it's like, if you're constantly trying to fuck people, you're just gonna leave people feeling more broken, used, and people having trust issues. And so, can we work to build friendship and look at, right? I really believe, like, holding sex for long-term relationships, right? Otherwise, you're just going to be forming attachments, stronger attachments with people who are destined to leave your life, and it probably will hurt for one or both of you guys. And there's really no, and really, if you worked on building strong friendship in your life, you would have people who you could cuddle with, or you could dance sensually with, who would probably scratch somewhat of a similar itch to the cravings of sex anyways. And yeah, and people would trust each other, I think, a little bit more if they thought, oh, this person isn't trying to take more than I want to give them. And I definitely had this experience, like, as a guy, getting to know, being, and I am hetero. I'd say my sexuality is fluid, but I tend to be more attracted to girls. um I have had the experience of a lot of people my age do not seem like they want to trust guys at all, or not want to get to know guys at all. And for me, I really just want to be people's friends. And I've had a lot of relationships that never seem to really get off the ground in friendship when connecting with females or girls, or and I think a lot of times it's because the pattern of a lot of guys are just trying to fuck, and then a lot of women have trust issues around it, and that pattern could be flipped too. I don't want to generalize it just towards guys, but oftentimes, when a guy is promiscuous, he's seen as a stud, or he's seen as, like, more valuable typically. And when a girl is promiscuous, typically called a slut or a whore. And so I think that does lead to the pattern being a little bit on men typically. But I wanted to talk, this kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about around. I went through a phase where I kind of felt like Rapunzel, because I'll explain. Um, I ended up, during, like, back end of COVID, I've talked about this on other videos, got really into meditating, fasting, and was in and out of psych wards, and then ended up having to move back into my parents' house, and really blew up my life in a way that made my next couple years really challenging in a lot of ways. And um, and of course, meditating and fasting, like, made my mom, amplified all my mom's control patterns. And so, of course, she wouldn't let me drive her car living there, and I'm in a town that I did not grow up in. I don't know anyone who lives in this town, because my mom had moved states. And so I didn't know anyone, and the only place within walking distance was a gym where only retired people worked out, like 60 and up. And so it created a real experience of me feeling desperate, alone, and isolated. And the only person I really talked to for, like, a good who I really felt connected to, or I could share how I was feeling, was a therapist. I would talk to, like, every other week. And I also at the start of this, my closest friendship at the time ended. I think partly because she might have thought I was a little crazy, fasting and meditating, getting sent to psych wards. And so it was like grief and isolation, and having no one to talk to. My parents work super long hours, and they're never around, and it was crushing aloneness in a lot of ways, crushing deep aloneness, feeling super isolated, feeling really desperate to be around more people my age and having no way to kind of really change that, that I could see at the time. And eventually, after 10 months, my mom lets me drive her car and I get a job at Stretch Lab, and I'm able to save money and eventually move out of my parents' house and move back to Chicago from the suburbs. And when I get back to Chicago, I am working at Stretch Lab and I'm working evenings. So I'm working 4 to 8 p.m. Monday, Wednesday. Friday was like 4 to 7 p.m. And then I'm working weekends too. And then on Tuesday and Thursday night, I'm teaching yoga classes. And so I really have like no social life. And again, at Stretch Lab, people that come to Stretch Lab are in the 30s or 40s. I'm like 26 at the time. So I had, I mean, even when I was at the gym, like eventually I started playing pickleball with the old people and talking to the old people. And I had one friend who was like a couple years younger than me. That was a guy. I even got into mahjong a little bit and was playing mahjong with a mahjong group with a bunch of people in their 60s and 70s during that. I was like working the mahjong group, but they would let me play with them. Um, and so after like 6 months, right? I started playing pickleball with the old people, and I started having a little bit more connection and a little bit more people to talk to, but I wasn't really around people my age at all. And then again, moving back to the city again for like a good couple months, just kind of hanging out with myself, which I'm really good at, and talking to my clients at Stretch Lab, but not really having much of a social life or being around people my age. And so then eventually I end up joining a climbing gym and getting to know some people who are more my age. And while I teach about a lot on this YouTube channel on like the valuing on being alone and being friends with people, and not really like, if we really want a soulmate, like not really trying to date people but just trying to get to know people, like I just want to say I'm still human. Like I still see people that are attractive and my heart flutters a little bit. I still even get crushes on people sometimes, but what I recognize is a crush is someone I just desire to getting to know deeper as a friend, rather than a crush is someone I meant to romantically date. I think sometimes, sometimes how we interpret things starts to change as we become a little bit more aware of our patterns of codependency. And uh, and so I'm at this climbing gym and I'm starting to meet females that are attractive, and I just spent like 2 years around pretty much no one my age for the most part. And I had like I would meet these people and that I was attracted to, and that I was really at that time I was oriented towards just being friends with people, but I was like I was a little always I was a little overly excited, and I also like I love to tell people that I love them or remind them that they're amazing, or that they really have value in my life. And at that time, I think I was still learning to titrate that a little bit, because you got to recognize most people are not used to hearing from a guy they just met that they love them or that they think they're amazing. And I've learned over time you got to boil the frog, right? If you lead with too much, I love you, hey, you're amazing, you're awesome, I'm so grateful, you're my friend, you're going to scare people away because they're going, foreign, scary. Maybe they're love bombing me to try and take advantage of me, which I'm sure some guys do. Um, and and so I've learned after having relationships of telling people, hey, I love you, I think you're awesome, and then them never texting me back after that. I've learned to kind of boil the frog a little bit and be like, hey, I really like, maybe I start off with, hey, I really appreciate you, or sending you the most love, sending you tons. And then after doing that for a while and I get to know this person a little bit better, maybe then I say, hey, I really love you, and I'm really grateful for your friendship, or and lean into it a little bit more. And sometimes I just say sending love just because it's sometimes nice to mix it up from I love you, right? Yeah, it's nice to add a little change, or sometimes I say sending you the most love, sending you tons of love, or hey, I really love you. And so it's sometimes just nice to cycle between them. But what I've found is that right, leaning like if you're scared that someone might push you away because by telling them that they love you, just lead with gratitude, because almost everyone, if you said, hey, I'm really grateful to know you, or really grateful to be your friend, would go, aw, sweet, and it wouldn't necessarily trigger the fear of, oh, they're love bombing me, and they're a weirdo, or they're trying to take advantage of me, or whatever the fear people have. And then like learning to slowly dial it, of then maybe say, hey, sending you so much love today, or I just want you to know you're really awesome. And from there, maybe then moving into, hey, I love you tons. Has found that, like, that, because I've definitely had relationships, like friendships, where I was texting someone and I was like, hey, you're amazing, and I was saying that, I guess, too frequently, and that person just stopped texting me back. And so that's one thing I learned. And, that pattern mixed with, oh, I haven't been around people my age, or females that are attractive for 2 years, and being super excited then to be around people my age, like, kind of amplified all of that. And then also, I think, and so it led to a lot of friendships never getting off the ground, or falling apart, or me stop hearing from someone, because I was either too vulnerable, or too loving, or too excited to spend time with someone, and it weirded them out, and they would just stop texting me back. And it's where I first started to see, wow, some people really have trust issues around guys, and they use their judgments, or they use sharp boundaries as a way of trying to keep them safe, rather than taking it slowly and getting to know people as friends, and allowing people's actions and words over time to really show you who can handle deeper depth and who can't. Um, I also think, I had a pattern of wanting to, that what how people saw me said something about me. And a lot of these friendships with girls that ended up not working out, I think, was the universe's way of trying to wake me up out of that pattern. Or also, during that time, working at the climbing gym, or I was working out at the climbing gym, and someone I was trying to become a personal trainer at the time, and someone who was leading a personal training class was leaving, and there was an opening, and um, I had asked them to if I could take it over, and they said no, essentially. And then I had been waiting for months to be able to get an audition to teach yoga at the climbing gym, and I guess that the person at the climbing gym, who was the personal trainer leading the class, didn't like me, and ended up saying not good things to the person who run the climbing gym. And then I never got an interview to ever teach yoga. Um, and it was like kind of dramatic, and that also kind of like woke me up out of the perspective of trying to get other people to like me, and how they see me, like, this adds value to me, or gives me worth, and how people see you just is telling you what the relationship with past people that looked like you was, or also how open and curious they are in other people, or maybe how they see you is, it's always about how they relate to themselves. Like, how someone is relating to you is how they relate to aspects of themselves, and if they judge aspects of themselves, or try and push down the parts of themselves that are more loving or more encouraging, right? They might try and push you away as well. And so it was really a time of, like, wow, like, I'm starting to be around people who are my age, and I'm even around people who are attractive, and I want to be everyone's friend, and I'm like an overly excited golden retriever, and a lot of rejection, and a lot of people not wanting to get to know me, and being a kind of a recurring pattern, or me always just saying the wrong thing of I'm either too excited or too vulnerable, and then this person just stops texting me, and it led to a lot of friendships not really getting off the ground, and also for me feeling kind of hurt and rejected. But it also woke me up on the pattern of, one, learning how to communicate with people who have trust issues, and learning how to, wow, I have to make sure that I'm not being I have to make sure that I'm boiling the frog and not being overly vulnerable or overly excited to spend time with someone, so that way there's a stronger connection between us, and like, and in a way, and so that that way when I am a little bit more vulnerable or am a little bit more loving, they can handle it because they trust me and I built the trust. And so it was also learning for me about learning to move slower, and when I did get rejection, or someone didn't want to get to know me, or set a super sharp harsh boundary out of the blue for either no reason, or something that really shouldn't have deserved such a sharp boundary. Learning to not take it personally, because it's not about you, it's about them, and it's about how they relate to themselves is then how they're relating to you, or their past how much of their past experience or past pain they faced and healed, then determines how much of that, how willing they are to be open and trusting towards someone new in their life. And I've even gotten to know, there's one friend, another friend who, it was a girl, and the friendship didn't really ever get off the ground, and like, she was giving me a ride home, kind of like on the first and only hangout, and was like picking really hot button topics like politics, and they also loved, she loved Beyonce, and was like, what do you think about Beyonce? And like picking things that could be really divisive if I said the wrong thing, and recognizing that sometimes people are looking for reasons to reject you, and are going to pick topics that are that it feels like you have to walk on glass, in order to, in order to make sure you don't like fall through the floor with that person, because, and that's them not having a lot of trust in guys, or being hurt a lot in the past by guys, and so then they're trying to find a way to prove that you are going to be like guys in the past. And for me, I didn't pass the test that time, and I don't, honestly, I don't think we would, I think we would have had a good friendship if I had passed the test, or we might have got along pretty well if those patterns hadn't come up so strongly, or if I knew how to navigate that a little bit better. But again, like, you got to learn just to not take things personally, and that it's not about you. And if you don't navigate it perfectly, and the friendship falls apart, and you never hear from that person, it's okay. The other people will come into your life. That isn't the end of the world. You meet other people, and maybe in the future you'll run into that person again, and you'll hit it off, and maybe you guys can eventually be friends in the future later down the road. And I also, and so I think all the rejection during this time, one, it taught me to move slower. Two, it taught me to not take things personally, and also woke me up out of the perspective of what someone thinks about me, or whether someone wants to get me know me or doesn't want to get to know me, says anything about me. And I think I definitely had a little bit of a stronger pattern with that, with people that were attractive, that were females. And so receiving a lot of rejection from people that were attractive and females, like, I think that's the one time the mirror teaching can be true, is sometimes we attract certain people to help us wake up out of limiting beliefs of how we're giving our power to outside things, how we're giving our power away to how people see us, and not recognizing that we have worth and a value and are enough, whether people want to get to know us or not. And the last kind of piece of this that I want to talk about is, like, a pattern I had in college is, I've talked about this in other videos, but my reproductive system, like, wasn't, what is like slightly discolored by something that's going on. Probably like I have a parasite or something in my gut, and it showed up in college, and I felt so insecure about it. that I then didn't want to get to know. I then didn't feel comfortable leaning into any type of romantic relationship in college, or dating, or having sex with anyone really in college. And it led me to having friends in college that I was attracted to, that I would have liked to have dated, but felt so insecure about the slight discoloration of my reproductive system that never leaned into any of those relationships. And so I also think, like, when I was 26, and coming out of and moving back to the city, and finally spending time more with people my age, um, the pattern of being mixed with, I'm overly excited to get to know people, and also there's a little residue of, oh, the people that I was friends with that were females in college, I secretly wanted to date, even though that wasn't consciously my intention. Getting to know people, I think that sometimes might have colored my response a little bit. And so, right, it isn't all on them for the friendship not getting off the ground too. I think there's definitely parts that I can own of, like, oh, like I was a little overexcited, and also, the pattern of wanting to date people, but they're just them just being my friend, I think left a little residue with how I was responding or showing up. Probably more just over text. With people I was then connecting with early on when I was 26, until I finally started to see through it after being rejected a couple times, but multiple friendships with girls not getting off the ground. Um, and so I say all this, hopefully to just bring a little bit more awareness to patterns. And also, like, can we lead with a little bit more of trust? And we really don't know who someone is until we see how their actions and their words show up over time. And, someone might even be showing up different over text than they do in person. And maybe they're very suave and cool headed over text. And in person, we go, wow, they judge a lot of people, or they kind of tease and put me down, or they aren't always nice to the person taking our order, or they aren't always nice when they talk to their siblings, and or they're not always nice to their dog, or animal. And it's like, all of that should take and be factors of, the more harmful someone is, or the more someone judges people, or the more someone's words might cut us or cut other people light, even if it's light, right, is showing us they might not be safe in the depths of a relationship, and probably someone I meant to just see every now and then. And also looking at how's their self-care, like, do they have any addictions, and how do they take care of themselves, is going to determine how capable they are of caring for you, whether it's just a friendship, or and really care is a backbone of love, of trust, of vulnerability. And if they aren't caring for themselves very well, it's a good sign that it's meant to be a surface level relationship, whether that means I see that person every now and then. And just because someone has addiction doesn't mean I can't be their friend, and can't get dinner with them, and can't, go get food with them every 2 weeks, or give them a call, and ask them how they're doing, and have an hour conversation with them once a week. You can do all of that. It's like, you don't really need strong boundaries in friendship as much. Like, you only really need strong boundaries when you're um, spending a lot of time with someone, when you're spending every day with someone, or seeing someone multiple times a week, or dating someone, or having sex with someone. Then it starts to become, oh, I need to be a little bit mindful of who I'm diving deep with, and how their patterns, right? I'm going to become more like their patterns. And so if I'm spending every day with someone, or having sex with someone, right, then it starts to become, okay, I need to be a little bit more picky about who I do this with, and really only save that, right? So that way we're not fucking people. Only save that for for long term viable relationships that I really think, like, I could marry this person. And if you feel unsure, take it slowly. Spend more time with them as a friend, and allow their actions, their words, to determine what kind of relationship it is. And, for me, I've even had friends where I felt deep love for them, and they're attractive, and they're my age, but they weren't really as attractive as I would have hoped, and or they didn't weren't really as physically active as, like, I like. For me, like, if someone's like really, like, if a girl's like really fit, or really flexible, and really active, I find that so sexy. And that's because I'm like that. I'm a little less like that now with injuries, but I used to be very much like that, and I hope to one day get back to that, and recognizing you don't have to settle, you don't have to compromise for what you find sexy, right? If someone isn't quite meeting that, maybe spend time with them as a friend, and recognize, if I really want someone who's a little bit more hot and sexy, I don't have to settle for this. I could hold out. I could be alone, and it probably would be I would probably be cutting out the distractions of a romantic partnership that actually would help me get to know myself deeper and actually help me love myself deeper. That then would prepare me for the soulmate the universe is waiting to bring in my life. And when we date people, it doesn't mean that soulmate isn't going to come, but the universe isn't going to bring you a new partnership most of the time if you're already in a partnership, and the universe isn't. And most of the time, I've talked about this in other videos, while dating someone at the beginning can be more growth, it's kind of like the rabbit and the tortoise, and over time, right, the person we date that's maybe not quite right for us, or the relationship's a little out of balance, or they have patterns, addictions, habits that are more negative or more harmful than we have, right? Eventually that starts to lead us astray more than it does help us. And it's why we need to be really picky about who we date and who we have sex with, because, right, if we don't want to be setting ourselves up for heartbreak, we don't want to be setting ourselves up for taking on patterns that are things we've already outgrown. And I think that's really important, is like you don't want to be picking up darkness, right? If you're dating someone and they have darker habits than you, or habits more based on harm, or they drink heavier than you, or are lost in a porn addiction, or are just more negative and judgmental, right? There's no reason you should date someone like that, because the person you're dating should be matching and amplifying you, not holding you back. Because then you're kind of just dating someone, you're just like dating the past almost. And if you're trying to move towards the future, you'd be better off alone, being the tortoise most of the time. Um, and so, yeah, so leading with trust and being open and curious, and allowing people's actions to kind of show us what kind of relationship, friendship it's going to be, or even like someone's like, wow, like this person's really hot and attractive and they're harmless, and I've gotten to know them from like 2 to 3 months, and they're amplifying me in a way that's really beautiful, and I do want to like lean into this romantic partnership with them, right? That's only something we really can feel certain on when we've really gotten to know someone, and you get to know someone as a friend, at least Luke's perspective. um but yeah, and so learning to trust people, because trust is what's going to build strong community, and we only are in systems. This world is only run by capitalism, run by corporations, run by a political system that not a lot of people really like, or think is working for us, because there isn't strong community, and the voices of the minorities, or the voices of the people that don't have enough, can be snuffed out, or be silenced, or can be thrown a blanket over, or and the resources that some people have abundantly, they aren't able to share those resources, because those voices are being snuffed out by oftentimes systems, government systems, and corporate systems that are trying to keep power in the hands of the few, trying to keep the billions, right, in a handful of people's pockets, or bank accounts, so that they have everything, and they can do whatever they want, and they can push their agendas of whatever they want onto people. And they get off on control, and they get off on, maybe they have addictions, and they secretly are trying to hide the ways that they might have addictions, right? Because they love the validation and respect they get on the top of the pyramid. And recognizing, until we learn to trust each other, and until we learn to become a safe man and also safe women, and not go around breaking a bunch of people's hearts just because we want to have sex with them, or because we think we're going to feel greater value and worth dating someone who's attractive, right? That isn't always the best backbone to start a relationship on. um, when we can start to lead with friendship, lead with trusting people, lead with openness and curiosity, and allow people's actions to tell us what kind of relationship it will look like, and even giving people grace when they might be a little overly excited, overly vulnerable, overly loving towards us, because maybe they've just been alone for a long time, or they haven't met people who are as cool as us, or they are just a little desperate for friendship. And can we be more gentle with people? And even when there's ruptures, or even when someone throws truth at us in a brutally honest way, or throws the pattern that we're playing out with them in a way where they kind of show their teeth and are a little aggressive, right? Can we go, okay, maybe I revisit this in a couple weeks and see if we can't be both level headed, because I do see there's a lot of potential for an awesome friendship if we can repair this, and if this person can have basic communicate can handle basic communication, and maybe their emotions were just getting in the way of us being able to repair this right now. And you know, even something else to look at is when I'm orienting towards repair, right? Are they gaslighting me? Usually, probably not a good sign that there's someone that could handle repair. And also, like for me, even when I got triggered, like I'd still try and be kind and respectful. I was probably just a little too aggressively honest with people about what I was seeing and the pattern relationship. And so, if someone's screaming at us or really becoming mean and nasty, probably a good sign that they're not someone we should be in relationship with. And so we have to you start to really learn about the nuances of connecting with people, and start to, sometimes things are forgivable, but are a big enough rupture where you go, oh, this is over, like I'm done with this person, like I wish them the best, but they clearly can't handle this friendship, or they clearly can't handle being dating me or whatever. Um, but most of the time, that's not the case, and sometimes people will gaslight you and not handle basic communication well. But we have to be willing to give people the chance, and even if they are a little too honest, or a little, just to show their fangs a little when we're trying to repair it, right? If I revisit it in a couple weeks, do they say I'm sorry, and oh, I could have handled that better? Because that's really is something that, the more gentle we are often, and the more forgiving we are, and the more often we'll have, people will feel more, the more often we'll have greater meaningful relationships in our life. And to forgive someone when it's hard is actually really humbling, and it creates meekness. But meekness is when our weakness is aligned with the Divine Mother. And humility is harmlessness, and humility is gentle, and moving slowly, and moving with the rhythms of change. And when we can allow ourselves to be humbled, we actually are becoming a more safe person. And it's why forgiveness and repair is so powerful, because you're now aligning yourself with, I'm no longer willing to be replay the past stories of pain, isolation, and separation, but I'm going to stand for unity. I'm going to stand for forgiveness. And even when it's hard to forgive this person, I'm going to forgive them. And I'm going to see if we can repair this, because I know there's a deeper, more meaningful relationship on the other side if we can get through the basic communication. And also, we'll probably both love each other a little bit deeper for being able to work through a little pain together. And when we step into meekness is when we're really stepping into our mastery, because your sensitivity and your vulnerability is your greatest strength when you're willing to own it and share it with people. And I also say that's like the best way to know who someone truly is to be vulnerable with them and see if how do they handle it, right? Do they go, I want to love and care for you deeper and thank you for sharing, or do they go, you get away from me? And when we can share our weakness is actually when we're the most strong, and we're the most trusting, and we're the most and we're the least insecure and the most whole. And we're the most fragile, weak, and the most righteous and willing to be aggressive or attack others when we can't share our insecurities and can't share how we feel weak or vulnerable in our relationships, or feel really insecure about someone abandoning us. And then when we don't talk about that is when we oftentimes play the perfect role for people to abandon us. Thank you for watching. Like the video, subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate your time and attention. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. You rock. And hopefully, this was helpful in some way. Love you guys. Bye.